Hello everyone, we have to discuss about the GS paper 1 prelims preparations. देख लेते हैं subject 1 test series. With respect to the history and of the ancient India and the terms and such as the Rama, Pythikus and the Shiva Pythikus and were used to the rest represented. And temple remains of the Gupta period and later Vedic period. Remains of the fossil apes. Remains of the fossil apes is answer C. Only a few fossil. Only a few fossils and related to the human evolutions and have been discovered and in the Indians and the subcontinent nonetheless, and some of the earliest schools and fossils and events have been and found in the Swalik's and hills and covering the Indias and Pakistan, and thus the schools and appears in the Potwars and plateau in Punjab and provinces of the Pakistan, and which is the developed on the sandstones, and thus the schools are called the Rama Pythagoras and the Shiva Pythagoras, and hence the option C is correct. They seems to the opposed and some the homilids and features, and through they the represented apex the Rama Pillais and was the females Pelekas and was the females, and but both the belongs to the same groups and remains of the Rama Pelekas and were the subsequently found in the other parts of Asia, Africa and Europe, and as well as and they were dated the between 10 and 14 million years ago. Consider the following pairs and archaeological sites belonging to period. Mehergarh. Mehergarh is related all of our Neolithic period, and Hangi is related to Paleolithic period, and Adi Chamul is related to the Megalithic period, and Diojali heading is related to the Neolithic. Mehergarh Neolithic. All the pairs giving above the correctly matched and Mehergarh is the Neolithic period की है. बुर्ज होम आज ही पढ़ा था मैंने ये वाला, तो बुर्जा होम ये इधर बुर्ज हम है, ये भीमबेटका है, ये कोंडी महाग्रह है एंड मुंबई में अरेबियन सी कुरनूल कैप्स भी हैं इधर एंड ब्रह्मागिरीज एंड पयारवालीज एंड बे ऑफ बंगाल कोलकाताज एंड चिरांद एंड दियोजॉय हीडिंग्स कोडी हवा मेहरगढ़ में. Question number 3. Which of the following Neolithic sites and was known for the pit house dwelling? Burj home. In the Neolithic site and Burj home in present day the Kashmir pupils built the pit house, which wears and ducks into the groups and with the steps and leading into them and theirs, and thus may have the provinces and shelters in cold weathers. Neolithic cultures. Neolithic period, it is the age of is the Srinagaras and Burj homes and the Kurus and the and Sarai Chirand and Islamabad and Blue Boots. some of the Karachi regions and Mehergarh regions, Delhi and the Karnool's, and river of Ganga and river of Mehergarh and Patna, Kolkata's, and Bhubaneswara's and Bay of Bengal and Golak and Konkan, Gadas. Which of the following statement is not and correct the regarding? Which of the following statement is not the correct the regarding Harappan civilizations? Unlike other Egypt and the Mesopotamians, the Harappans and did not long and inscriptions. The Harappan side used and for the burnt and buildings, whereas in the contemporary buildings of Egyptian bricks and were the primarily. So D is correct. Unlike the Harappans, Neolithics and the denoted elephants in large scale. There is other nearly 400 species of Harappan and writing on the stone seals and others. Objection: unlike the Egyptians and Mesopotamians, the Harappans and did not write long inscription. Most inscriptions were recorded and on the seals and contact only. For few and altogether we have about the 250 and 400 pilgrims and in the forms of pictures and stand of some and the sound and of the object. Harappan's inscriptions is not the alphabetic but the largely photographics. The use of the worst and break in the Harappan sites and remarkables and in the contemporary and buildings of the Egyptian tiles and were the permanently used for. We find use of the backs and contemporary Mesopotamians and but have been used in other larger contact of the Harappan side. The Indus and pupils reduced the wheat, barley, and rice peas, and like 2 times of the wheat and barley and were raised. The industrious pupil barley race and likes to the types of the barley and the subscanded. Arrange the following Harappan sites and from the west and to the east and directions. West to east directions. First है नागेश्वरम, सेकंड है धोलावीरा, थर्ड है रांगपुर, फोर्थ है लोथल. तो सेकंड इज करेक्ट. एक्सप्लेनेशंस देख लेते हैं. इस क्या है, झेलम नदी इधर, चेनाब नदी इधर, रावी है इधर, मंडास है, हड़प्पन सिविलाइजेशंस है, गंगा नदी, यमुना नदी, राखी गढ़ी, मिथाई कोड एंड बनावली, कलीबंगा एंड बनावरी एंड सतलज, इंडस रिवर। मोहनजोदाड़ो, कोट दीजी, अमरकोट एंड चन्हूदड़ो, धोलावीरा, सरस्वती नदी, माही नदी, कंबाट नदी, नर्मदा नदी, नागेश्वर। Which of the following and Mohenjo-daros and head and the originary and forms of the governments? Vajjis and the Angutras and the Nivas. The Angutra Nayak. The Angutras and the Angutaras and Nia. The Angutras, Nyayak and vast list of the Mohenjo-daro as follows as the Kasi and the Koshalas and Anga Mahajanpadas, Vajjis and Malas and Chaityas and Chedi, Vastar Kuru and Pandavas and Maha, Mancha and Maha, Avanti, Gandharas and Kamboj. Two kinds of state are the included the list of the Mahajanpadas and the monarchical and Rajyas and non the monarchical states shown as the Ghanas and the Sanghas. Two of the Mohenjo-daros and the Vajji and Malla were the Sangmas obligatory from the governments. Important Janpadas and Mohenjo-daro cities and Gandharas, Takshilas, Indus, Kuru है, हस्तिनापुर, पांचाला, कोशाला, कोशाम्बी, नागर, अवंती, उज्जैन, बे ऑफ बंगाल, अरेबियन सी, कावेरी नदी. Question number 7. Consider the following statement regarding the taxation system during the Mohenjo-daro Mahajanpadas. The tax on the agriculture was fixed and the 3 and 4 and was the produced is wrong. There were the tax on the craft and person is right. There were also the tax on the goods and that brought and the sold brought trade. It's right. Second and third is correct. Explanations देख लेते हैं. as the rulers of the Mahajanpadas and building huts and food and maintaining big armies, and they needed more the resources and they needed the officials collect and thus also instead on depending on the occasionals and of the pupils, and as case of the Rajasthan of the Mohenjo-daros, they started the collecting regular text. The takshas on the cups. The takshas on the cups and were the most and importance, and there was because and most and pupils were the farmer usually the takshas and where was fixed and was produced, and this was known as the bhaga or shares. First, first and second is correct. Statement 1 is related. There were taxes on the craft person as well as the could has been and forms of the laborers, and for example a beavers of a smith and may have had and to works for other day every day month and for the kings, hence the statement. The harder were also the expected to pay the taxes in the forms of the animals and animals produced. There were also the taxes on the goods and that were the bought and sold the top trade. And hunters gatherers and also the head and to provide the forest produced and to the raja. The terms of the shurasenis and the magadis and were used in the contact local varieties of language. Question number 8. Terms of the shurasenis and the magadis and were used in the context of local and varieties of the prakrit language. Explanation देख लेते हैं. It was during the time of the Mahajanpadas and that the varianted language and begins to the developed and from the Sanskrit and classicals and Sanskrit because become the gradually and the incredibility the language of the Brahmas and the learn and few or had the restricted use on the certain occasions such as the issue of the proclamation and the officials document and during the Vedic colorations. In the towns and the villages, a popular forms of the Sanskrit was spoken Prakrit, and this had local the variations. And the chief western varieties and was called the Shoresenis and the eastern varieties and Magadhi. After the region whereas and they were the spoken hence. Pali was the another popular language based on the Sanskrit and the commonly used in thus the regions. Consider the following rulers, all three kings. Antiochus second is Thos of the Syrias and Ptolemy third is related to the Philadelphus of Egypt and Antigonus and Antus. Gotanus of Macedonia is related third. Third is correct. Ashoka mentioned and various of his and the contemporaries in the Hellenics and words and with the whom he the exchanged and missions and diplomatic and the otherwise. A passage in one of his the inscriptions and dated 256 and 255 BC reads, where the resigns the Greek kings and named the Amti Yoga and beyond the Clamrials realm of that and the Amti Yogas in the lands of the four kings and the Tulamayas and Antkichinas and Makas and the Elik Sudala. There have been the identified as the Antiochus seconds and Theos of the Syrias 260 and 246 BC, the grandsons of the Selus and Nicators, and Ptolemies and thirds and the Philadelphus of Egypt 285 and 247 BC, and the Antigonus and Gotanas of Macedonia 276 and 239 BC, and Magdas of the Cyrus and the Alexander of the Epirus. Question number 7. Consider the following categories of the professors. Following categories of professors, all of above is correct. Philosophers and the hermans and the counselors and magicians. How many of the above and professions was the mention as the different caste by the Difference caste Magadha Megasthenes Indica. Megasthenes in his The Indicas speaks of the Mauryan society as being divided into seven castes, and the philosophers, farmers, and the soldiers, and the handsmen, and artisans, and the magistrate, and the consuls. Clearly, he was and confusing the best, the caste, and with the occupations commanding on the caste, and no one is allowed to the marry and outside his and the ovens and caste or the exercise and any the callings or aunt and accept his oven. Question number 11. Consider the following statement regarding the Buddhism and Sangmas. The rules and made for the Buddhism and Sangmas and were the written down in the Vinayas and Pitakas and Satvahana and slaves. First is correct. Both the Mahaviras and the Buddhas felt that only those and who left their the homes and could gain and true knowledge the arranged and for them to stay together in the Sangmas and the associated of those and who the left their the homes. The rules made for the Buddhist and Sangmas were the written down in other book and called the Vinaya Pitakas. From this and we know that there were the separated branches for men and the women. All men could and join the sangmas and however children and had to the take the permission of their the parents and slaves and that of theirs the master. Choose who works and for the kinds and had to the take his the permissions and the debaters and that of the credits. The space-need system and was one of the main features of the administrations and under the Mauryas. The fundamental aspects of the Mauryas and the administrations was the space-need systems and the Artha Shastra advocated the frequent use of the species and the recommended and that they should work in the rescues and household merchant and aspect student merchandise women and policy was the dedicated at the center although the initiative was left to local interested and Ashok also the refers to the agent and who brings and him the news and the generally keep him the enforced on public opinion. This was one of the mean and third and which of the king and kept a the watch on men the more and remote part of the empires and which necessaries to the Mauryan government. Question number 3. Consider the following statement regarding the Ashokans and inscriptions. Consider the following statement regarding the Asoka inscription. The Prakrit and the Greek and the Aramaic language and were used. The Aramaic and the Greek inscriptions and were used and inscriptions in Afghanistan. And which of the following statement are both one and second is correct? Most Asokans inscriptions and were in the Prakrit language and while those in the northwesterns of the subcontinent and were the Aramaics and Greeks. Most of the Prakrit inscriptions were written in the Brahmi script and however some of the northwest and written in the Kharoshti. The Aramaics and the Greeks inscriptions and used of the inscriptions in Afghanistan. Question number 14. Under the Buddhist and the Uttara Bodhi mudras and indicated a gesture and the supremacy. A is correct. Gesture and the supremacy enlightenment. Bhumispera mudras and the Varanas mudras and the Dhyana mudras and Abhyana mudras. Dharma mudras and Venkatras mudras Tarjani and Namkaran mudras. Janana Mudras, Karana Mudras, and Kispara Mudras, and Uttara Bodhini Mudra. Question number 15. Bhasa works and the Urubhanga and deals with. Urubhanga deals with. C. Story of the Duryodhanas and during and after his the fight and with the Bhimas. The Sudras and the Makri Kirit and the Littles clay and card and love affairs of the young Brahmicals and the Charudattas Bizda, a wealthy courtiers, and Vasha and Varu Bhangas. Story of the Duryodhanas and during the after his fight and with the Bhima. Kalidas and the Vikramong. Vikramu Varshia and love story of the Vikram and the Urvashi. Visham, Vishak and Datt and Mudra's Rakshas is a the political drama and but the narrated the ascent of the kind and Chandragupta empires and power to India. Question number 6. Consider the following statement regarding the Shakas and rulers the Rudradaman. He was known and for the repair of the Sudarshan lakes and he issues and first evers and long the inscription in Sanskrit. Both one and second is correct. Both the statement giving above and the correct although and the stakes and established and rule in the different parts of the country and only those who ruled in the western had powers of any considerations and language for about and for the centuries so and they benefits and from the she wars trade in Gujarat and issues numerous silver coins. Most of the famous Shakas rulers in the India was the Rudradamans and AD 330 से लेकर के 50 and he ruled not only on over Sindh and but also over either Eastern things and part of the Gujarat and Konkan and Narabda Valley. He is famous in the history and because of the repairs of the undertakes improved the Sudarshan lakes in the semi-arid zone of the Kathiawar and which is had. Irrigation for a long time and decades back in the Mauryas. Rudradaman was a great lover of Sanskrit and although and had Central Asia's and ancestor he issues. The first ever long inscriptions cast Sanskrit and aid the earlier long inscription and that we have in the Indias and were composed in the Prakrit and which has been the made of the state language by the Ashokas. Which of the following sites and used in the important of ports of the early Cholas and Puhar? A set of the Ashokans and rock edict and where the found aid the Shopara suggested and that it was the important and the port in the Mauryans times and however it has not and the properly explored. Puhar was and once other florized unsigned ports and cities known as the Kaveri and the Pompetes and which for other while and served as other capitals of the early Cholas in the Tamil Karams and Puhar is located the near and mouth of the Kaveri rivers. The premium Cholas and ports was the Puhar, also known as the Kaveri Pattanams, and the major Pandyas and ports was the Korkoi. And whilst the Tongi and Muchiri and were the important parts in the Cholas kingdoms. The premier Cholas and rulers and also known as the Kaveri and the and the majors and Pandya sport and was the Korkai and while and Tongi and the important sport in the Cheras. the battles and leaf and the areca nut and were the among the importance and communities involved in the trade and centers the western Indias in the 1145 C inscriptions from the Mongols apart on the Saurashtras and coastal refers to other levy and imposed on the camels load and the cart loads and the wordlays of battle sleeps and arrivings at this the ports and probably from the South India. Question number 18. During the period of the Guptas and was the design and the Sarnathas and was used and for leaders of the merchant and caravans. Kings adopted a numbers of the students to win and the support and move and were the powerful either economically or the socially. Because of theirs the political mobility and strength for the extent some importance administrations and on the new hierarchy and this is means of the son succeed and fathers to those the post and examples the poet Harisenas was the Mandhan and Nyay and of the chief justice officers and like this father some once and one person held many officers and instead of the inside being the Mahadatta Nayaks and Harisen was the Kumar Amatyas meaning an important minister and the Sandhi Vigraha and meanings is the ministers of war and peace. Besides important and man probably and says the local administratives thus included the Nagar Serithi or chief and bankers of the merchant of cities and the Sarth Vahas or the leaders of the merchant caravans the Praptama and Kulikas and or the center craft and the head of the Kayastas or describe. Consider the following statement and regarding the Sangama literature. None. Talpakappiyam is a work on the Tamil grammars and authorized by the Tirukural and Pathigrams and was the written by the Sitta and Lai and the Sitta Nagars and the Mani. Meglai was written by the Ilengo and Adigals, which one statement giving above and in are correct. The corpus of the Sangama literature and includes the Tolka, Piyam and the Ittu Gums and the Pattu Pallu and the Pathine, Kanaddu and the two species and the Shilapa, Thigums and the Mani Meklai. Mani Meklais and the Tolkupium authorized and by the Tolkupium is the earliest and Tamil literatures is the words on the Tamil grammars and what is the provided and information on the political and the sociological condition of the Sangama period. The Illutolius or the late orthologist and consist of the 8 works and the elocutions, Nomas and the Puranas and Kalitokias. The Pattu Patras and or then the ideals and consist of the 10 works and the Tirumuru, Grooms and Pallai and Poru Nara Rupadai and the Sirupana, Pana Rupadai and the Perum Panara Rupadai and the Mullai and the Pattu, and Nedunal, Badai and the Madura Kanji, and Kuri Kanji and the Pattu and the Pali Nadana, Pallai and the Malai and the Kudikam. Both Itu and the Togais and the Itta and Pettu and the Pattu and were the divided into the two mans and the groups and Aham and Love and the Purams. Pati Kalikanku and consists the 18th works and mostly the dealings and with the ethics and the morals and the most important among them in the Tirukurams and authorized by the Tiru and the Vellur and the Sila Pattigams and written by the Ilango and Eli illegal and the many megai and by the Sittalai and the Santar and also the provided valuable information on the Sangama policies and the society. Question number 20. According to the Katyana and consider the following statement regarding the judicial systems during the Gupta period. The court of justice and was attended by the king and as the highest court of the appeals. The guide was the recognized and as one of the judicial bodies on the certain occasions. Both 1 and 2 and are correct. The Kartianas and describe the judicials and process at the length. The court of justice and was the attended by the king as the highest and court of the appeals, and he was the assisted and by the judge, minister, chief priests and brahmans and assessors bearings in the accordance and with the need of the individuals cases. Hence, statement 1 is correct. On certain occasions, representations of commercial institutions were also the initiated to assist the king and recognition judicials and bodies were the guide the folk and the assemblies or the council are the substitute appointed by the king in his the oven places generally are the brahmans and the king himself. Hence statement second is correct. Judgment was based the either or the legal text or the social usage or the edict of king, which could not the contradict and the first and to any great extended evidence was the based on any or all of three and the sources document witnessed or the possessions of the incriminating objects and ordeals as other means of the proof was not only the permitted and but used. Hence statement third is correct. The Katyanas and expected the theory of the caste punishment and through it is the doubtful and if it was the applied in everyday case. Question number 21. Consider the following statement. Shimuka was the founders of the Satavahanas dynasty and King Halas authorized the king and the Gatha and Saptasti and in Prakrit. Which of the following statements are correct? First and second is correct. Both the statements giving above the correct and the founders of the Satavahanas dynasty and was the Simukas and he was the succeeded by the Krishnas and who extended the kingdoms up to the Nasik in the west and the third king was the Shri and the Satakarnis. He conquered and westerns and the Malwas and the Bearats and he also the performed as the Aswameghas and sacrifice and the 17th and king of the Satavahanas and dynasty was the Halas. He resigned and for the period of 5 and years and the Hala because famous for his and the books and the Gatha and Saptasatis and also the Code and the Sata. It and the contains 700 verses in the Prakrit language. Question number 22. Consider the following statement regarding the Rig Vedic period. The cattle rearing was men and the occupating and during that period and workers in the metals and made other variety of the articles and with the coppers, browns and the irons. Trade was the conducted and on the worters and system. Which of the following statement giving out of first and second is correct? All the statements giving above are correct. The Rig Vedic Aryans and were the pastorals and pupils and theirs the men and cooperations and was the cattle rearing theirs the wealth and was the estimated in terms of their the cattle and when they the permanently and settles in the North India they began to practice agriculture and with the knowledge and use of the irons and they were averse to cleanse the forest and were brings more lands under the cultivation and the carpentry and was the another important professions and the availability of the wood from the forest and cleared made the profession and the profitables and carpenters and produced the chariots and the plugs. Workers in metal made other variety of articles and with the coppers, bronze and iron spinning was the another and important occupations and cottons and woolens and fabrics and were the made and goldsmith and were the active in the mark makings. Ornaments the potters made various kinds of vessels and for the domestic use. Trade was the another important economic activities and the weavers and surveyed as important means of transport. Trade was the conducted on the waters system in the latest times and gold the coins called the nishkas and were used as the media of exchanges in larger transactions. During the Sangama's age, the terms and the ujhavars and was used for the ordinary and the plagman. In the Tamil region, large and the landowners and were the known as the Velilers and the ordinary and plaguemans and were the known as the Ujha wers and the landless laborers and including the slaves and were known as the Kadai and Shiar and the Edimai. Which of the followings are means of the achieving freedoms and under yoga schools of the philosophy? First and second and third is fourth is correct and the samadhis and the dhyanas and the niyama and pratyaharas. The yoga school literaries and means the unions of the two and measure the entire and they the argues that the human and being can the achieve and the salvation by the combining the meditations and physical applications of yogic techniques. The physical aspect of this schools deals and the primarily with experience exercise and various the postures and that are the also called the asanas and there are the several types of the breathings and exercise and that are the called and the pranayams and other means of the achievings and mukti or the freedom are means achieving freedoms and the meanings and ways of the achieving it. Yamas practicing self-control and the niyamas and the observation of the rules governing one's life and the pratyaharas choosing an object and the dharnas and fixing the mind over the chosen object and dhyanas and the concentrating on the above and mentioned chosen object and samadhi it is the mergings of the mind and the object and that lead to the final dissolutions of the self. Question number 25. Consider the following statement regarding the king and the Karavelas. Hathi Gumpa inscription explained the about and his the concubines. Both the statement and giving above are the correct in the 1st century BC and the Karavelas of the Kalingas and record a large number of the event in his life's years by the years in the Hathi Gumpa inscription and Jainism spreads to the Kalingas in Orissa in the 4th century BC and in the 1st century BC it is the enjoyed the patronage of the Kalingas and king the Karavelas and who had the defeat and the princess of the Adhras and the Magdas. Consider the following statement regarding the Hindustan. Second, Babar used the Hindustan to describe the geographies and the fauna and the cultures of the inhabitant of the subcontinent. Answer justifications. Take the term Hinduism and for the example, today we understand it as the India's the modern nation state. When the term was used in the 13th century and by the Minhaj and Aisiraj, meant the area of the Punjab and Haryana's at the land between the Gangas and the Yamunas. He used the terms in other political sense for the land and that were other part of the dominions of the Delhi and Sultans. Hence the statement incorrect. The areas and the inscriptions in this the terms and shifted with the extents of the sultanates and but the terms never the included South India and why the contract in the early 16th century Baburs and used the Hindustan to describe the geography and the fauna and the cultures of the inhabitant of the subconscious and this was the somewhat similar to the way and the 14th century poets and Amir and Khusro used the word Hind, and while the ideas of the geographical and the cultural entities and like India's and did and access the term Hinduism and did not the carry the politicals and nationals meanings and which we the associated with its today. Question number 27. Consider the following statement regarding the sultans and Muhammad of Ghazi. Sultan Muhammad of Ghazi. He interested the scholars Al and the Biruni and to write and the account of the subcontinent. And Sultan Muhammad of Ghazi and was a contemporary of Rajendra I. The Sultan Muhammad of Ghazi, Afghanistan, and he ruled from the 997 to 130 and the extended control over part of the Central Asia, Iran and the northwestern part of the subcontinent, and he raided the subcontinent almost every year, and he the targeted were the wealthy temples including and that of the Somnathas Gujarat, and the Sultan and the Muhammad was also the interested in finding out and more about the peoples, and he conquered the interested the scholars names and al-Barunis to write and the account of the subconscious as Sultan Muhammad of Ghazi and was the contemporary of Rajendra I, and during his the compositions and in the subcontinent continented and he attacked and the temples of the defeated and king and the looted there the wealth and ideals. The best known and the Chahamanas and rulers was the Prithvi Rajas and third and the 1168 and 1192 and who defeated and the Afghans and rulers and named the Sultan Muhammad Gori in the 1191 and but the lost to him and the very next years in the 1191 92, hence the statement third is incorrect. Question number 20. Consider the following and pairs regarding the categories of the land and during the Chola empires. Only two pairs. Only two pairs and the Sala Bhujas and land of the peasants and the Belangais and of the shifted. Chola inscription mentioned the several categories of land and the Benai Bagai and land of the non-Brahmans, peasant and the proprieties and Brahmans and land and shifted to the Brahmans and the Sala Bhoga. Land for the maintenance of the school and the Devdanas and the Tiruna, Mattu and the Kani, and land gifted and to the temples and the Pali. Chan dumps and land that donated to the Jainas and inscriptions. Delhi becomes the capital of the king and for the first times under the Tomaras Rajput. Delhi first becomes the capital of the kingdoms and under the Tomaras Rajput and who were the defeated in the middle of the 12th century by the Chauhans and also defeated and two as the Manas and of Ajmers. And it was and under the Tomanas and the Chauhanas that the Delhi and becomes an important commercial centers and coins the minted and here's the cold and the Dahali wall had other wide and circulations the transformations of Delhi and into the capital that the controlled based and areas of the sub and the continent started with the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate in the beginnings of the 19th and century. Consider the following pairs, none of them. A only. What and the Minhas I Sirad and sought and thought about the Rajia in the 1236 and the Sultan Iltutmish daughters Rajia and becomes the Sultan the chronologicals of the age and the Minhas I Siraj recognized and that she was the Moors and Abal and qualified and then all hers the brothers and but he was not the comfortable at having other queens as rulers. Rajia becomes the sultan under the Mamluk slave dynasty. On her and the inscriptions and coins the Rajias and mentioned that She was daughters and of the Sultan Iltutmish, and this was in the contract to the queens and the Rudrama Devi and 1262 and 1289 of the Kakatiyas and dynasty of the Barangals and part of the modern Andhra Pradesh. Rudram Devi and Shears charged and had the names on her the inscriptions and the pretended she Rudra, she was a man. Another queen and the Diddas and rules in the Kashmir 980 and 103. None of the pairs are correctly matched. Consider the following statement regarding the duties of the Muktis and the holders of the Iktas and were called as the Muktis. The duties of the Muktis and was to the lead and the military composition. The duties of the Muktis and was to the mention lay and orders in theirs the Iktas and the Muktis and the collected the revenues of their the assignment as salary. All the above statements are correct and the Khilji. The Khalji and the Tughlaqs and monarchs appointed military and commanders as the governors of the territories of the varying size, and thus the lands and were the called Ikta, and there the holder was called the Iktadars or Mukti. The duties of the Muktis and was to the lead and military compositions and mentioned law and order there. Iktas and in the exchange and for there the military and services the muktas and the collected and the revenues of there the assignmented as the salary, and they also the paid and there the shoulders from thus the revenues. Control over the muktas and was the most effective if theirs the office and was not the inhabitants and if they were assigned Iktas for a short period of time and before being the shifted, and thus hers and the conditions and of the name of service and were the rigorously and imposed and during the regimes of Alauddin Khilji and the Muhammad Tughlaq. Question number 32. Consider the following statement regarding the Akbarnama. Only two statements are correct. The second and volumes the Ain-i-Akbari and the Dolt was the Akbar and the ancestor. The second volumes and the recorded and the event of the Akbar regimes. Akbar ordered one of his choose and friends and the frontier and the courtiers Abul Fazls to write the history of his the regimes, and Abul Fazls wrote the three volumes history of Akbar regimes entitled Akbarnama. The first and volumes depth was the Akbar's ancestor. The second volumes and recorded the events of Akbar sign. The third volume is the Alai is the Akbari, hence the started first is incorrect. It ideals and with the Akbars and the administrations and the household armies, the revenues and the geography of his the empires, and it also the provided rich and details about the traditions and cultures of the peoples living in India. The most and the interesting aspect about the Ain-e-Akbari and is its the rich and the aestheticals and the details about the thing as the diverse as the crops yield price and wages and the revenues. Question number 33. Consider the following statements and regarding the Cheras kingdoms of the Mahodhayapuram. Second is correct. The ruled and introduced the Malayalam's language and inscripts in there the inscriptions. The Cheras and kingdoms of the Mahodayas and was established in the 19th century at the southwestern part of the peninsular art of the present day Kerala, and hence the statement first is incorrect. It is likely. It is likely that the Malayalam was spoken is this the areas the rulers introduced the Malayalam's language and inscripts in there the inscriptions in fact, and this is one of the earliest example of use of other Rhine language in official record in the subcontinent. Question number 34. Consider the following statement and regarding the Kathak. regarding the Kathaks and first and two only. The Kathaks and was the Kathak and were the originate and a cast of the story and tellers in the temples of the Gnomes, India. The Kathak and began the evolving into other districts. Involving a district made of the dance in the 4th and century. In Kathak and began the involving the into other districts made of the dance in the 5th and the 16th century and with the spread of the Bhakti movement. First and second is correct. The term Kathak is derived and from the Kathas, the words and used in the Sanskrit and others the language for the stories. The Kathaks and were originated a cast of other stories and tellers in the temples and the North Indias and who. Embased and there the performance with the gestures and songs. Kathaks began evolving into other district and mode of the dance in the 5th and the 6th centuries with the spirit of the Bhakti movement. The legend of the Radha Krishnas and were the enacted to in the folk places and called the Ras Leelas and which combines the folk and with the basis and gestures of the Kathak storytellers. Under the Mughal emperors and there's the novels and Kathaks was performed in the court and where it occurred and it is the present features and developments into other forms of court of other dance with other distinctions and styles under the patronage of the Wajid Ali Shah and the last Nawab of the Awadh and it grew into other major arts of form. Question number 35. Which of the following statement and regards and the Nath Pathis and is incorrect? The opposed and the orders. The ideas of the renunciations of the word. Nathapanitsis and the Siddhacharatas and yogis and they advocated and the renunciations of the words and hence the options is correct. To theme the path of the salvations and lay in the meditations on the formless and ultimate realities and the realizations of oneness and with and to achieve this and they the advocated and intense and training of the mind and the body and although the perspectives practices and law like yoga shalas yoga snas and the breaths and exercise and the meditations thus the groups and become the particularly populations among low caste and there's the criticism and of the conversation religions created the ground for the devotions reasons and become other popular force in the northern India. Consider the following spheres and regarding the Bhakti Sant and their the regimes. One pair only is correct. The Chaityas and the Rigvedas. Chaityas and the Rigvedas. The Dadu and the Shudras and the Guru Nanak's के times में and the Aiknath and Vedas and the Vaishnavas and the Puranas and Devta not and man. Mariana Beggars and 9th degree Celsius, Ramnath Convention 11 से 12 डिग्री से and consider the following pairs regarding new the dynamic and they are the founders and all three pairs and सद्दत खान अवध से हैं और मुर्शीद कुली खान हैं बंगाल से हैं असफ जैन मोहम्मद से हैदराबाद से. Consider the following pairs and regarding the new dynasties and they are the founders. All three pairs. Among the state and that wears the curved out of the most and the Mughal provinces in the 18th centuries and three the stand out and very the prominent and thus were the Awadh and Bengal and Hyderabad. All three states and were the founded in the members of the high Mughals and the nobilities and who had been the governors of large and the provinces. The Shadat Khan Awadh and Murshid Quli Khans Bengals and the Asaf Jahan Hyderabad. All the above and statement are correct. Question number 30. Consider the following statement and regarding the foreign travelers and Jesuits and revolted nobly and translated an Indian text into the European language. And Delte and Barbos wrote the details accounts of trade and the society in South India. First and second is correct. Once the Portuguese arrived in India in the about 1500, the numbers of them roads and details occurred the regarding India's and socials, the customs and religions practices. Jesuits and the reverto and nobiles. Even the translated and the Indians and the text and Jesuits, rovers, and the nobiles, and even the translated and the Indian text into the European language. Among the best knowledge known and of the Portuguese and writers is the Derte and Barbosas, and who wrote a detailed account of the trade and society in the South India. One of the most famous French jewelers and Jeans and the Baptiste and the Taveniers who traveled to India at least and the sixth time. He was the particularly and the fascinated and with the trading conditions in India and the compared India to the Iran and the Ottoman Empire. Some of those and the travelers and likes the Italians, doctor and the Menucci and never the returned and to the Europe and settled down in India. Question number 39 and Iyengar and the system was. Iyengar system was it was other socio-economically systems and which means and that the required and of the rural populations and the certain goods and the social services were made and by other staffs of the professions. It was other socio-economically system and which is the originated and first in the Karnataka's regions in the unsigned period and then the spread to the Tamil and the Andhra region in the medievals and period. It is meant that the requirement of the rurals and population in certain goods and social services were made by other staffs of the professions and who had the remunerations. All villages, artisans and mines and together and with the community and administrative and staff were the their force and known by the common names of the Iyengars and receipts of the Ayam. Question number 14. Consider the following statement regarding the Palwas. Early Palwas rulers and from the 250 AD से लेकर के 350 AD issues there the characters in the Prakrit. Palwas. The early and the Palwas and the rulers and from the 250 and AD 2 से लेकर के 350 AD and issues there the charters in Prakrit. The second line of the Palwas rulers and who rules the between and the 350 AD and the 550 AD issues and there the characters in the Sanskrit. महेंद्र वर्मन्स एंड 600 से लेकर के 630 AD एंड ही वाज द ग्रेट बिल्डर्स ऑफ केव्स टेम्पल्स एंड द महादा पट्टूज एंड इंस्क्रिप्शंस होल हिम इज द विचित्र एंड द चिट्टा नरसिंहवन and the 630 से लेकर 668 AD and the Narasimhans and I was also known as the Mamalla and which means the greats and the Vrestals and Narasingharam and second or the Ram Raja Simhas and 695 to 722 AD and the shore temples and the it Mamallapurams and the Kailashanathas and temples and the Kanchipurams and were world in his the regimes and has considered the following statement regarding the Rashtrakutas. Rashtrakutas were of the Kannadas and origin and the Kannada's language and was theirs the mother's tongues and the Amog Varshas I built and the magnificent rock cuts monolithic and Kailash empire temples at Ellora. Which of the following statements given above is are correct? A. One only. Rashtrakutas and 755 से लेकर 975 AD and the Rashtrakutas and bears of the Kannada and origins of the Canada's language and was there the mothers and tongue and the Danti Durgas and was the founders of the Rashtrakuta dynasty. His the successors Krishnas and I was also the great and conquerors and he the defeated the Gangas and the eastern and the Chalukyas of the Vangi and he built the magnificent rock cuts and monolith and Kailash temples at the Elloras and the statement second is correct. Amok Varshas and 815 818 AD से लेकर के ruled for a long period of 64 years and he had lost control over the Malwas and the Ganga Valley, Gangavalis, and at his and the residence was the populace and for the culturals and development. He was the followers of and the Jainism. He was also the patron of letter and his the himself and wrote the famous Kannada's works and the Kavi Raja Margas and Kavi Raja's Margas and he had also built